A woman named Lena matched with a guy named Daniel on Tinder. His photos looked normal, handsome, smiling, and well-dressed. They exchanged messages for a few days before he invited her to a bar downtown. Lena arrived at the bar first. She texted Daniel, letting him know she was there. He replied, "I see you." She looked around, but there was no sign of him. Minutes passed. Then another message. "You look even better in person." Chills ran down her spine. She glanced around the dimly lit bar but still saw no one resembling Daniel. She asked the bartender if anyone matching his description had come in. The bartender shook his head. That's when she got another message. "Don't turn around." Lena bolted out of the bar. She never saw Daniel in real life, and the profile disappeared from Tinder that same night. A man named Ethan matched with a girl named Mira. She was beautiful but only had 2 pictures, both in black and white. They chatted for a few days before she invited him to her house for a movie night. When he arrived, the house was eerily silent. The inside was filled with porcelain dolls, hundreds of them. They were arranged on shelves, the floor, and even the couch where Mira sat waiting. She smiled and said, "They like to watch." Ethan laughed nervously. Halfway through the movie, he felt one of the dolls had moved. He tried to shake it off, but when Mira got up to get snacks, he noticed something horrifying. One of the dolls had his exact facial features. Without a word, he got up and ran. When he checked Tinder later, her profile was gone. Mark matched with a girl named Tasha. She invited him over for dinner at her place. She seemed sweet, so he agreed. Her house was uncomfortably dark, and as they ate, she asked him strange questions. "Do you ever feel like someone is watching you? If something happened to you, would anyone notice?" Mark laughed them off, but he felt uneasy. Later, when he went to the bathroom, he noticed something off about the floorboards. They looked recently disturbed. He pressed his foot against one and realized it was loose. Lifting it slightly, he saw an eyeball staring back at him. He ran. Later, he searched the news and found out Tasha's previous Tinder date had gone missing. Julie was nervous about her Tinder date with Eric because he barely spoke through text, but his pictures looked normal. When she arrived at the restaurant, he was already seated. He never spoke. He only nodded or shook his head. Halfway through the date, she got a text from her best friend. "Julie, where are you? I just saw a missing persons report. That guy you're with, he went missing 3 years ago." Julie's stomach dropped. She excused herself, went to the restroom, and called the police. By the time they arrived, Eric was gone. His Tinder profile? Deleted. Samantha matched with a guy named Alex. He was charming and asked her to dinner at his house. When she got there, everything seemed fine, until he asked, "So, Rachel, how have you been?" She frowned. "My name's Samantha." His expression went cold. "No. It's Rachel." She laughed it off, but he continued calling her Rachel. Then she noticed something disturbing, a framed photo of a girl who looked exactly like her. She grabbed her phone and said she had to leave. As she got up, he whispered, "Rachel never leaves." She ran. Later, she found out Rachel was his ex-girlfriend, who had disappeared 3 years ago. A girl named Vanessa met a guy on Tinder named Mike. He offered to pick her up for their first date. As she got into his car, she smelled something rotten. She asked about it, and he shrugged. Halfway through the ride, he turned onto a deserted road. "What are you doing?" she asked. Mike smiled and said, "She's still in the trunk." Vanessa jumped out of the moving car. She survived, and the police later found that he had been keeping bodies in his trunk. A guy named Derek went to a girl's house for a Tinder date. Her apartment was filled with mirrors, but not just regular mirrors, they were all facing toward the couch where they sat. She smiled and said, "He likes to watch." Derek felt uneasy. He asked who he was, but she just giggled. When he looked at his reflection, he saw an extra person behind him. He turned around. Nothing was there. He ran out, and when he checked Tinder later, her profile was gone. A woman named Hannah went on a Tinder date with a guy named Matt. The date was boring, so she excused herself early. That night, as she lay in bed, she got a text from him. "I had fun tonight. You smell different when you sleep." Her blood went cold. She called the police. They found a hidden crawl space in her apartment. Someone had been living there. Jake stayed over at a girl's place after their Tinder date. He woke up in the middle of the night to soft whispers. He turned to his date, but she was sound asleep. Then he saw it. A handprint on the ceiling. And it was moving. He bolted. The next day, he searched her name online and found out her last 3 dates had gone missing. Mia met a guy named Sean on Tinder. He seemed nice, so she agreed to go to his place. When she got there, his house was filled with old toys. He told her he was a babysitter. That's when she saw them, tiny handprints on the walls, but no children's room. She asked where the kids were. Sean smiled and whispered, "They're still here." She ran. Later, she learned that 3 children had gone missing from that house years ago.